So, this is a very, very interesting book. Professor McDonald is Associate Director of the Institute of Geophysics and Planetary Physics at the University of California, Los Angeles. His researches have embraced a remarkable diversity of natural phenomena, and his professional interests are further extended by his participation in national science policymaking. He is a member of President Johnson's Science Advisory Committee, and he's the one who developed tectonic warfare. The Fukushima earthquake is an example of it for the HARP project. This is what HARP is for: secret war and changing relationships. Deficiencies both in the basic understanding of the physical processes in the environment and in the technology of environmental change make it highly unlikely that environmental modification will be an attractive weapon system in any direct military confrontation in the near future. Man already possesses highly effective tools for destruction. Eventually, however, and eventually is right now, means other than open warfare may be used to secure national advantage. As economic competition among many advanced nations heightens, it may be to a country's advantage to ensure a peaceful, natural environment for itself and a disturbed environment for its competitors. Operations producing such conditions might be carried out covertly, since nature's great irregularity permits storms, floods, droughts, earthquakes, and tidal waves to be viewed as unusual but not unexpected. Such a secret war need never be declared or even known by the affected populations. It could go on for years with only the security forces involved being aware of it. And I can guarantee you the security forces all collaborate with each other and trade information. The years of drought and storm would be attributed to unkindly nature, and only after a nation was thoroughly drained would an armed takeover be attempted. So perhaps the effects of the Fukushima disaster, which is to weaken and to poison the food sources and water sources in Japan, will allow the U.S. military, with 14 bases in Japan, to take over such a strategic territory. I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen, but that would be something that could happen as a result of Fukushima. And it's really interesting that maybe the last 6 or 8 Japanese prime ministers only lasted 1 year because they were trying to make détente with China. And even the Japanese emperor did the unheard of thing. Maybe a year ago, within the last year, he went into China and officially apologized to the Chinese for the Japanese military takeover and the horrible things they did to China in World War II. My grandfather, Colonel Edwin Joseph McAllister, was commander of supply for the China-Burma campaign in World War II. He went to West Point when Eisenhower was there, and he drove a jeep from India with the British and U.S. Army over the Himalayas on the Burma Road and the back way into China to push the Japanese out of China. So I'm real familiar with that era. In addition to their covert nature, a feature common to several modification schemes is their ability to affect the Earth as a whole. These are global wars now from computer facilities and antennas that can touch any other place on this planet. The environment knows no political boundaries. It is independent of the institutions based on geography, and the effects of modification can be projected from any one point to any other on the Earth. There are HARP facilities at Gakona, Alaska, U.S., Newfoundland, Russia, Tromsø, Norway, British, Cyprus, British, Dushanbe in Tajikistan, I don't know who that is, Australia, British, Antarctica, joint, Brazil, probably American, Chile, and Peru, those are probably American, and Arecibo in Puerto Rico. When the Haiti earthquake happened, I said, I bet you this is HARP, and I started digging. The Eurasian Mineral Company, mining company, had bought 25% of the mineral rights to Haiti 6 months before the earthquake. In December, before the earthquake, the World Bank met to consider the portfolio of the Eurasian Mining Company, who had applied to the World Bank for funds to develop mining in Haiti. The World Bank Committee met the day before the earthquake, but they did not vote to fund it. The earthquake happened the next day, and after the day after that, the committee met again and voted to fund it. When I investigated the funds that were donated for mineral exploration and assessment of how much they could get out of each mineral body in the Dominican Republic, that mineral belt extended into Haiti. I discovered that the Rockefellers, the British mining company interests, and Canadians were all invested in exploration and assessment of the mineral belt in the Dominican Republic that extended into Haiti. So they had a good idea. They were assessing how much money they could get out of each volcano. These are volcanoes that formed on the seafloor that were uplifted with the island to make the island of Haiti. So that's ancient seafloor. And so they pretty much calculate, they know how much they're going to get. They apply to the World Bank knowing how much their profits will be. And they're usually pretty accurate because now they can map from satellites 100%, just 100% perfect assessment and finding exploration results. And they can also scan the ore bodies from space with a 30-watt signal. We wouldn't even buy a light bulb with 30 watts. And they can map the grade of the ore across the whole ore body. Bechtel has done it for decades from space. So they pretty much have probably cherry-picked a lot of the mineral sources. But they're also targeting Central Asian countries that are former colonies or parts of the Soviet Union. And these countries now have sort of collapsed without the Soviet support, and they're sort of, the infrastructures are decaying and education is dying, and so they're easy meat for transnational mining companies to go in and just strip mine without any environmental laws and totally poison and leave the environment wrecked in other weaker countries. The environment knows no political boundaries. It is independent of the institutions based on geography. And the effects of modification can be projected from any one point to any other on the Earth. Because environmental modification may be a dominant feature of future world decades, there is concern that this incipient technology is in total conflict with many of the traditional geographical and political units and concepts. This is a completely new form of war. Political, legal, economic, and sociological consequences of deliberate environmental modification, even for peaceful purposes, will be of such complexity that perhaps all our present involvements in nuclear affairs will seem simple. Our understanding of basic environmental science and technology is primitive, and I want to really emphasize that. They really don't know what they're doing. But still more primitive are our notions of the proper political forms and procedures to deal with the consequences of modification. All experience shows that less significant technological changes than environmental control finally transform political and social relationships. Experience also shows that these transformations are not necessarily predictable, and certainly this one isn't, releasing this huge amount of radiation into the environment. And that guesses we might make now based on precedent are likely to be quite wrong. It would seem, however, that these non-scientific, non-technological problems are of such magnitude that they deserve consideration by serious students throughout the world if society is to live comfortably in a controlled environment. So here he is, the developer of tectonic warfare, and he's warning people that this may not be such a good idea. Now, after reading that and understanding what is behind HAARP or how it might be applied, let's look at this disaster and maybe figure out some of the economic benefits behind executing a disaster like this. The Western North America, Canada, the United States, and Mexico is the food basket for North America. And what basically they've done is to contaminate it permanently with low-level radiation, which is contaminating the water, the livestock, the dairy products, the food, the air, even our gardens, our shoes, our umbrellas. And you should not go out in the rain for at least a year without full protective covering, including gloves, because this stuff goes right through your skin into your tissues and blood. And you should also leave the umbrella and your shoes or your rubber boots outside so that you don't track it all over your house and contaminate your house. In Tokyo already there is yellow rain being reported. Yellow rain was reported after Chernobyl. It's the iodine 131 in the rain that is staining it yellow. And with that iodine is, remember, 13 other radioactive isotopes that are in that raindrop, in that puddle, in that stream running down the road. So you need to be very, very careful. And you should also avoid dairy products. Dairy products and drinking water are the main pathways for radiation into your body. It's just so horrible. It's really, I've been in such a shock since March 11th. I've been just stunned, terrified, because I knew what was happening to North America. And I'm really sorry to tell you this today, but I think people should know. I mean, I wanted to know, as horrible as it is, but at least people can take iodine. Here is some seaweed that one of the visitors today brought so that you could see it. You can go to health food stores and buy kelp powder. You just put like a half a teaspoon in water every day and drink it. You can get tincture of iodine for $2.50 at a drugstore, and you just rub it on your skin here over your thyroid. Your thyroid is between your Adam's apple and your collarbone, and it wraps around the esophagus. This is the most important thing to protect, and you have to do it for the next year. This stuff is going to continue to be coming across the ocean until they really stop it and cover it and entomb it